Hey, I am BJ with Real Property Management. What I want to do, I want to go over our owner agreement, kind of page by page and section by section, to maybe help you understand kind of what it means and how we view the document. Anyways, so again, my name is BJ, Real Property Management. We've been in business, it'll be 10 years in June of 2019. Excuse me. All right, so the first page, the property management DC owner authorization form. The first page, which is the checklist, is kind of just a list of items we need from you so we can effectively kind of take over the property and have everything we need. So the first is just to complete and sign the management agreement. Scan that, email that back to us, however you get it back to us. Second is if the home's occupied, we do want a copy of the lease, deposit release for the security deposit, so that can be sent to us. We'd like a copy of the move-in conditions, so when the tenant moves out, we can compare those and effectively handle the security deposit. And then also 2 keys, one for us and then one for if a vendor needs to go to the property. We have an extra set in the office. He can take the key, and then that way we're never left without a key. If it's vacant, we do want 3 copies, one for us, one for the tenant, and then an extra one for a vendor copy. If the property is vacant, ensure the utilities are on. For vacant and occupied properties, the best is we recommend you contact the electric and gas company and put the account in what's called the tenant landlord account. Basically what this does is if the tenant is in the property, they're going to be responsible for all utilities for electric and gas. When the tenant moves out, they'll usually turn those utilities off. So say they're moving out at the end of the month, they'll have them go to turn off at the end of the month. If it's in a tenant landlord account, they won't actually turn off, they'll just revert to your name. If they're not in a tenant landlord account, then they do get shut off, which could, in the winter, cause freezing pipes. They could charge you reconnection fees. And so it doesn't make the owner liable for those utilities during that time. It's just, it gives you protection from having them shut off. Now the water bill has to stay in the owner's name. We will request a courtesy copy. We always make tenants responsible for water in single families. But with a courtesy copy, we can kind of oversee and make sure the tenant's paying that. If not, when we get a copy and they haven't paid the water bill, we'll reach out to them and treat that as unpaid rent, just like we would if they haven't paid a bill to us. So the next, if you have an HOA, we just need those rules, regulations, contact information so we can handle any issues that come up and just reach out, introduce ourselves. And then last, a copy of a rental license. In DC, you're required to have a basic business license. In most areas in Maryland, you're required. I think Frederick County doesn't require it. Anyway, so copy that. If you don't have one, we can help get one for you, and I'll explain that a little bit further down. And then basically once you send us this owner agreement back, we'll get everything started. We'll enter everything in the system. If it's occupied, we'll send a welcome packet to the tenant to let them know that, hey, moving forward, rent needs to go to us. For maintenance, dial this number for emergency maintenance. And basically just welcome the tenant. If it's vacant, we'll kind of just start the process of doing an inspection, going to the property. That way we can, in the inspection, we'll provide a report of about 100 pictures or whatever, so we can document how we receive the property from you. And then that way you can see the property. Maybe you haven't been to the property in a few years, but you can get some eyes on the property through our inspection. All right, so going to the second page, which is the client information. So basically for this information, this page, the important things we need: name, contact information, mailing address. If there's a co-owner, same thing. And then we need social security number. Birthday's not that important. The only time we really would need birth date is if we have a voucher tenant moving in. Then we'd have to get photo ID, we'd have to get a W-9, and different things that we have to send to DCHA. But for this, we can just use social security number, and this is for 1099 purposes. At the end of the year, any money we receive in your behalf, so all the rent, say rent's $2,000 a month, at the end of the year, we're going to 1099 you for $24,000, which is just showing money that came to us in your behalf. We'll also send you a statement showing any expenses that came out of that, so you'll be able to use that for tax purpose. But we do need that social security number or tax ID, so we can do 1099s at the end of the year. If we don't have a social security number, we can't send out any payments over $600 until we have that. So most rents in DC are well over $600, so we would need that right away. The next one is just to identify, whether it's a partnership, an estate, or LLC. If it's one of those, we then need the tax ID. This next one is electronic funds transfer. Most of our owners we deal with are out of state or out of country. If we mail them a check, it takes 3, 4, 5 days. It gets lost in the mail. So we recommend ACH payments. Basically, rent comes in due the 1st, late the 5th, and then we will send that to you on the 10th. Once we've verified funds have cleared, we'll ACH that to you on the 10th of every month. And it usually settles in your account on the 11th or 12th, depending on the banking institution you bank with. And then we just need a signature on that with the date. All right, so the third page, which is select management plans. This just goes through the 3 different management plans we have. Standard, which is, it's good for properties that are, $1,500 a month, where, you want 8% of collected rent is much less than $195 per month. We do charge a higher leasing fee on that. Again, 50% of 1,500 is going to be $750. The next plan is our most popular, the deluxe plan. So basically, any leasing fee to find the tenant, advertise, showings, applications, background checks, all the way through lease signing is $495. After that, once we start collecting rent, it's $195 a month. So if the property rents for $2,000 or more, this is kind of what we recommend. It's going to be close to 10% at $2,000. But if you rented a property for $4,000, you could still select this plan, and it's $195 a month. The 180-day placement guarantee is basically if we place a tenant in the property and they move out in the first 6 months for any reason, eviction, job transfer, military, we will release that property for free. No charge to you. We don't charge the $495 again. The premium plan is a 360-day tenant placement guarantee. But really, if it comes down to it, most tenants that pass our background check, which is credit score of 650 or better, make 2.5 times the rent, no eviction, no criminal history in the issues in the last 5 years, no real estate related items on their credit like unpaid utilities or anything like that, we don't have very many tenants that move out. When we do every once in a while, it's usually military transfer, job transfer. Evictions for us only typically happen on properties we inherit with tenants that the owner needs help with, or if an owner gets desperate and takes the next person available and that doesn't pass our background check. Those are the evictions we deal with. Most evictions you hear, like eviction horror stories, are really just that. It's a matter of getting the right tenant in the property, which makes my job easier, which makes your life easier. So if we go through this, there's a 60-day risk. In the premium plan, we offer a 60-day love us or leave us, which basically is if you're not happy with us for any reason, you can cancel the contract, and we refund any fees except for leasing fee or setup fees. All right, let's go to the next page, which is the exclusive owner authorization. We just need the property address. The next 2 pages are basically the management agreement. It is a lot of information, but we want to make sure we kind of cover every possible scenario. And so the first one is leasing. And so basically this means that you're hiring us to lease the property, manage the property, collect rent, handle evictions, oversee maintenance. We try not to do anything to your property without you being aware. But there are certain situations where somebody's not available. The tenant hasn't paid rent. They're late by 15 days. And we want to start the eviction because we don't want our tenants to think that they can just kind of bully us and do what they want. But we will reach out. So for an eviction situation, rent's due the 1st, late the 5th. If we haven't heard from the tenants by the 5th for why they're late, we'll reach out to them on the 6th via text, email, and phone call. Depending on their story, we'll give them till the 10th. If they can't make payment by the 10th, this is when we recommend starting the eviction. This is really important, especially with new tenants, to know that, hey, we're not going to mess around. If it's something like where we have the furlough or something is happening that is legit, we'll contact you, ask you how you want to handle it, make recommendations, and then move forward as you recommend or as we agree. We'll oversee any maintenance, any inspections. Really, our goal is that you can just, on the 10th of the month, verify the payment comes to you, check your statement, make sure everything matches. And then during the month, as maintenance comes up, just kind of respond and say, hey, yep, sounds good, take care of that. Or can you get me a bid on this? And then we handle all that for you. The next section is rents and security deposits. So again, we collect rent 1st to the 5th. All that sits in our trust account. and then on the 10th we disperse that to you minus any fees. As far as security deposit, we hold this just in a checking account. We haven't moved this to a security deposit account, but we'll handle any tenant disbursement. So a tenant's been there for a year, they move out, we collected the rent, we collect the security deposit, we have a move-in inspection. After the end of the year, we'll compare the move-in, move-out inspections, and then deduct any unpaid rent, any late fees, any unpaid fees. If there's any tenant damages beyond normal wear and tear, we'll deduct that from security deposit, add interest, which again, we don't collect interest on the security deposit, so we'll add interest based on what DC law is. It's the average interest, I think we do like 0.5% is typical, and then we'll disperse that to the tenant within 45 days. So there is an expense for an owner on that little bit of interest that we don't collect just because we haven't put it in a savings account. It's just a normal checking account. Again, it's on a typical rent, you're looking at $35, $40 maybe. Okay, so number 3 is maintenance repairs. So what this one really means or covers is, we want to have authorization that if something happens to the property, we can handle it in your behalf. So if there's a fire, flood, or emergency, we don't have to contact you first to get permission. Now, with that being said, we know it's your money. We want to make sure we cover and don't overspend. So our plan of action on maintenance, on emergency maintenance, is to go and band-aid this situation, which for us means if there's a freezing pipe that's burst and there's water pouring in the tenant's basement, we're going to send somebody over there. We're going to shut off the water. We're going to replace that pipe, repair that pipe so the tenant can have water back on, and then we're also going to clean up that water. We're not going to, at that point, we're not going to fix any damaged sheetrock. We're going to help try to do everything we can to maybe cut out some sheetrock to avoid any mold growth, anything like that. But then any rebuild, any repair cost, we would then get multiple bids. Anytime we have a maintenance request come in, you do get notified via email. So as soon as we know about a maintenance situation, 99% of the time you would know, unless the tenant called us outside of our maintenance line. If they called us our office phone, we would run over. We try to create a work order that you would be notified via email saying, hey, we had the tenant call and they have a leaking pipe. We're going to send somebody over. We'll update you as soon as we have more information. Now, normal maintenance, say a disposal stops working, tenant puts that into our email, our work order system. You'll get an email saying, hey, the tenant says the disposal's not working. We always troubleshoot any item with the tenant, so we'll walk them through checking the electrical, seeing if they can unclog it, seeing if they can reset it. If we determine that it's something beyond that, you'll get an email saying, hey, the tenant has a issue with the disposal. We're going to send somebody over and take a look at it. If it's more than $200, we'll let you know. And that way you have an idea of what we're looking at. And if it's worse than that, we'll hold off until we get a bid for you. We do ask for $300 maintenance minimum to cover situations like this. Say we have to send a plumber out and he goes over and it's $200 to fix. We want to be able to pay that plumber without having to request money from you every month. And then the next month when rent comes in, we would replenish that $200 spent. It also, the $300 minimum we ask for is kind of to help prevent some trip fees. Most plumbers don't charge the trip fee, but if the plumber goes there and he can replace that disposal right then and there, and say he's going to charge us $300, and we tell him no, don't do it, and we call you, you say yes, get it done, then he goes back, he might charge us a trip fee now because he's been there twice, so he might charge us $395 or something, and so we want to avoid those multiple trips, and so that's the idea of the $300. But again, it's our goal not to spend your money unless we see it makes sense that we can save you money. Again, we have to explain it to you, so we want to be able to explain to you why we did it, and make sure you're happy with that. All right, so next is utilities. This kind of talks about what I talked about before. The owner agrees to have all utilities on while the property is vacant. This includes electric, gas, water. If you want, we can pay those bills for you while it's vacant. We do charge a $5 fee just to mail that out, but most owners do this. I think we only do this for like 1 or 2 of our couple hundred properties we manage, but that's what that's talking about. Disbursement, this is talking about us sending you funds. So again, we send these on the 10th. As rent comes in the 1st to the 5th, say it's $2,000, the management fee is $195. On the 10th of the month, you should get $1,805 minus any maintenance expense or utilities or anything that was paid out. You would receive a statement explaining where every penny went. And then if you have questions or something looks off, you can always reach out to us and we will go over that with you. And that's what number 6 talks about, is periodic statements. We send one every month as you receive your check, and then we send one at the end of the month, and then at the end of the year we send a full tallied one so you can use that for tax purposes. All right, so owner obligations, number 7. This is management compensation. So this is talking about different fees. There's some that are questioned about management company fees charged to tenant, including NSF fees. So when the tenant NSFs, there is a fee our bank charges, so we just offset that and charge that back to the tenant. Late fees we do keep, and the idea behind this is if the tenant pays on the 6th, or say that we'll say the tenant pays on the 8th, we've contacted, called, and emailed that tenant multiple times. So there's work that goes into that to get them to pay. We don't charge any fees to you for that extra work, and so that our payment for that is the late fee the tenant would pay. We don't always charge late fees, especially the first time the tenant's late. We'll waive that once, depending on the situation. But late fees in DC is 5%, it's the most we can collect. And then so servicing fees would be servicing the tenant, serving fees, serving the tenant for late notices, serving the tenant for eviction notices. If there's any fees charged, that would be paid back to us. Application fees, tenant applies, that's a non-profit center that basically we break even on that. Lease renewal fees, we do charge the tenant a $95 lease renewal fee. This is just the admin work behind emailing back and forth, both you and the tenant, and just setting that up. Any admin fees that we charge the tenant, that would be maybe move-in fees, or the tenant wants us to go over there and maybe they hire us to do something, like take care of maybe their lawn mowing for them. There might be an admin fee. And then collection fees, if we do send the tenant to collection, and there's fees on top, but that doesn't happen very often. Next is management fees. So depending on the plan you select, it's $195 or $250 per month. A minimum charge of $100 if somebody takes the 8% management fee. Leasing marketing fees, depending on what plan you picked, our typical again is the deluxe at $495, and these are paid only once we have received first month's rent and the tenant moves in. There's no money due until a tenant moves in and we start collecting rent. Let's see, charge we paid. So for lease renewal fees for the owner, we do charge $150. I've seen some of these other companies as high as charging another month's rent or half a month's rent. We look at this as a way to, our goal is to keep the property rented, avoid vacancies, avoid turnover costs, and so the $150 is our admin time. And in the end, if we can keep a tenant in the property and renew it, the $150 is very inexpensive to keep a tenant in the property and avoid those vacancies and turnover costs. All right, the next one, property reviews. This is something I really recommend, especially the first 3 months. Tenant moves in, they have great credit, amazing. They have, a couple dogs, one dog or something, or maybe no pets. But we want to get in there in 90 days in the first quarter and just make sure they're taking care of the property like we expect them to. And depending on how they're taking care of it, we would then recommend another inspection, or if everything looks good, just be happy. That the $99 again is very inexpensive. If say a tenant has moved in, a roommate, or they have a pet they're not supposed to have, that can cost a lot more than $99. So this $99 will go out, we'll inspect the property, we'll send you 25 to 50, 60 different photos of the property so you can see how it was 90 days in. And then again, it gives us eyes on the property, lets the tenant know that we're going to be out there and be proactive about making sure they take care of the property. So we do give you an option of every 90 days for 120, or excuse me, 180. That is $99. All right, next one is D, the setup fee. There's no setup fee unless the property is occupied, and we waive this 99% of the time, just to make it easy. We'd rather take on a property and start managing it than charging a setup fee. The next one is sell the tenant. We get a lot of questions on this. This is basically if you decide to sell your property and the tenant in the property buys it, we can collect a 3% commission. Now, how this works is if you want to sell the property, just let us know. We'll reach out to the tenant, see if they want to buy it. And if they want to buy it, it helps you avoid, hiring a real estate agent at maybe 6%. If the tenant doesn't want to buy it and you put it on the market and somebody else buys it, then there's no fee collected for this. So that is only if the current tenant buys it, and the goal is to help you save actually 3% if you had to list it and then the tenant ends up buying it. All right, the next one is eviction protection. This is important if you were, you're worried about evictions. Maybe you've had a history with, some bad tenants. And so it's kind of like insurance. Basically, for $22.99 a month, if there has to be an eviction charged on a tenant that we place that passes our background check, we'll cover the cost of that eviction all the way through the writ. So that covers any notices, any court costs. And then once we get the writ, there is a small extra fee of the writ, which I think is about $150 or something like that. And then if there's set out costs, that would also not be covered. And basically in DC, they just changed it from moving items to the street to just locking in place. And so we go over there, change the locks, give the tenant access for about a week, and then disposing of that. So that is not covered by eviction protection. But again, we don't evict very many of our tenants that pass our background check. All right, next is insurance. All right, so owners should, once they move out, owners should put the property in a tenant landlord account, which basically means their insurance just covers the property and not the possessions. When a tenant moves in, we require them to have renter's insurance. We also require tenant liability insurance. Tenant liability insurance is basically if the tenant is at fault, say there's a, they let the water, overflow in the sink and it causes damage. Tenant liability insurance up to $100,000 would cover the repairs of that. If it's more than that, that's when after the $100,000 we would reach out to your insurance to have them cover any additional costs. Data and record. Owner agrees to make all available data, proof of ownership, and different things like that. But typically it's a deed. If we need a copy of a deed, for a voucher, DCHA, a voucher tenant moving in, we have to prove ownership. We'd have to get photo ID, W-9. So that's what we're asking for here. Liability and indemnification. What this states is, us as your agent, if we do our job and we're just acting as your agent and there's no fault by us, that you won't hold us liable. If there's negligence by us, then of course, we should be held liable. Accessibility, assignability, number 11 is assignability. This is saying that we can assign it to another property manager. When we bring the property on, you'll be assigned an in-house property manager, but we may change who that property manager is anytime, depending on our situation and kind of the growth of our properties, or maybe a property manager that would better fit you. Term. So our agreement is a one-year term, and the whole idea behind this is our leasing fee is much less expensive than most companies at $495, and this is to kind of protect us from owners hiring us to take advantage of the $495 leasing fee and then terminating once the property's leased. We're 100% in agreement that if you're not happy with our work, we're not doing a good job, that you should be able to terminate with us. We do ask that you give us a 30-day notice, give us a chance to correct. Say we're not contacting you about maintenance, just saying, hey guys, I need you to reach out to me about maintenance. And if we don't, then obviously you can terminate, and we would never charge a termination fee for that if we're at fault and we're not, living up to your expectations of the agreement. 13 is foreclosures. If you do fall behind in payments, and there's issues like that, keep us posted of that. There is extra work that that's involved with us for that. Dealing with posting at the property the tenants call. The tenants get worried, and so this talks about just different. We might charge an expense for something like this where we have to go out and do more meeting of different people or handling that process. Number 14 is just saying that you agree to keep the property in compliance with DC code. Again, this falls under maintenance. We're not going to spend money without letting you know. Some of the simple DC code is rekeying between tenants, having smoke detectors, CO2 detectors if there's gas in the property, and different things like that. So that's basically the management agreement. I know I skimmed over a lot of pretty quick, but I'd love to answer any more questions on that. All right, the next page is optional services. So this is 100%, nothing in here is required. This page is kind of focused on if you have reservations about maybe tenant damage. We can help kind of offset that risk by, a small fee of, $10 a month. Well, we'll kind of cover any damage above the security deposit if that's something you're worried about. Or if you're worried about an eviction, if the property goes all the way through, we have to hire the marshals, and the marshals come out and lock the property, lock this stuff in place. We'll refund 1 month's management fee. So these are more of just to help give you assurance that, for us, this stuff doesn't happen very often, but it does happen, can happen, and we can help offset that. So first is rental license. In DC, you are required to have a basic business license. DC charges for a single family is $190.30. It's a pretty long process. It's a lot of paperwork, inspections. You got to take the paperwork to 3 different offices. So we do charge $650 for that, but that covers all the paperwork, overseeing the inspection and making sure it's done. If you have a rental license, just give us the information, or if you're going to take care of the rental license, we just ask that you verify that. The next is the furnace filters. For $10 a month, so $120 a year, we can have a furnace filter that's delivered to the tenants. Furnace filter is always tenant responsibility. What we found is, I think it's about 75%, is one of our HVAC guys told us, 75% of furnace issues is due to clogged or dirty furnace filters, lack of airflow. And so by making sure the tenant changes that filter out, it can avoid a lot of these, $200, $300, simple HVAC repairs that are just done by, a dirty filter. And so having a filter mailed to the tenant every 90 days is a great reminder for the tenant to, hey, I need to go change this. Because we all kind of forget that type of stuff, even on our own properties. Next is maintenance remodeling. If you want us to shovel snow, do lawn care while the property is vacant, this is where you would choose that. The next is a property deed of trust. We do need a copy of that, and then just give us information there. We'll definitely need that for vouchers. Otherwise, we can just verify this information off of DC tax records. And then just information about your mortgage, information about any liens, and then the optional damage insurance, which I just talked about, and optional rent protection, which I talked about. And then the next one is insurance authorization. The idea behind this one, or the key behind this one, is, the property has a fire. We had one just a few months ago where the tenant called, said, hey, something happened in the bathroom and there was a fire in the attic. Fire department came out, put it out. We just want this to have authorization, policy number, so we knew who to contact to start that claim with your insurance company. We can oversee all of that conversation, oversee the bids, oversee the repair, and that way you're not having to manage that. We'd keep you obviously updated, just like any maintenance work order, keep you in the loop about anything that's going on. And so that's what this form is. And then the last form, or the next form, is just mold, lead-based. Just let us know the information you know about those in the property. If you've had mold in the past, just let us know how it was fixed. Lead-based paint. It's a known fact that any house before 1978 probably has lead paint. Once it's been painted, it's considered contained and not dangerous. But if there's any paint chips or cracks, we want to repair those as soon as possible to avoid any dust or any issues like that. So this is just telling us what you know about that. And then the last page is if you have a home warranty, which is home warranty is like American Home Shield, or where if the microwave goes out, they'll come out and they'll fix it or diagnose it and fix it. That you pay them a small fee of $55, $110. We do charge $75 per work order for something like this, because it is a lot of managing and contacting for this service. Typically, if we have a dishwasher that breaks, we can contact our vendor. He'll come pick up keys. He'll go look at the property. For home warranty, those vendors won't pick up keys. They require us to meet them there, so we got to go meet them, hang out with them and wait. And so we do charge a fee for that. I would recommend, if you have a home warranty, do not use it for just day-to-day maintenance. I would use it just for replacement. So if the HVAC, is something simple, I would just use a vendor. It might cost you a little bit more, but the goal is it keeps a tenant happy. These home warranties can take 2 to 3 weeks for something simple, where we could have something fixed in a couple days. A tenant that, well, what we found is simple things that don't get repaired are a bigger nuisance for tenants than big items, because they know something simple can be done for a few $100, and so that's more frustrating to them than waiting on, say, replacing the fridge. They know that costs a little more money, takes a little longer, but that way you have the protection of, if the fridge goes out, you can get that replaced. But if it's something simple like the water dispenser in the fridge isn't working, it's going to be cheap. It's going to be a little more expensive, but quicker to have it done by a local vendor than a home warranty. And so that's basically it. If you have any questions, you can call me, email me. Again, my name is BJ, Real Property Management. Thanks for watching.